Welcome to the Noble 23 podcast. All right, man.
Right on.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going. Just trying to make it through the life, you know.
Just moved in, new house,
Moved in, new house,
married.
7 months.
There you go.
So, always a struggle.
It's just life.
Life in
Never
general.
gets easier.
Why would it?
I mean, but the struggle is what makes it worth it, really.
Come out on top eventually anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
Thanks. Thanks for coming up.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Glad you can make it. So you were at a previous department before you came to work with us, or came up to where we're working at now. How long were you at the previous department?
I was there for 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
Started on December 18th of 17. Went to a 2-week Firefighter 1 school and graduated March 3rd of 2018. And
That's where you actually met your wife too, though, right?
That is the exact same place that I met my wife.
That's pretty cool.
That was an interesting course of action overall, because the entire intention was to go up there for getting a fire degree,
A certification to get a job.
and neither of us intended at all on ending up dating somebody and coming out with a firefighter certification.
It just happened naturally.
It just happened.
That's cool.
Like, they nicknamed me Lover Boy, like week 5 or week 6.
Oh, man. Smitten.
And like the thing about it is that they nicknamed me that, and we weren't even actually dating. Like, we were just hanging out a lot, and they had assumed that we were dating, and both of us are like, no, we're just hanging out a lot. Like, it hadn't even registered to both of us.
Yeah, and you're like down at Chipstick.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's like nothing to do down there.
literally nothing. Like,
Yeah.
freaking Waffle House. There's a
Small town nearby, but
Macon. You have to drive half an hour just to get to Macon.
Yeah.
That just ended up happening, and we got done with week 7. We had both passed our hazmat ops and awareness, and she asked me, she's like, so how are we going to make this work? I'm like, are we dating? She's like, are we? And I was like, okay, well, Sarah McClyman, will you date me? And she's
so
like,
official.
yes. And I was like, make it official.
Do you want to go steady?
That's actually how we ended up hanging out so much, is that we started studying together,
Yeah.
and it just progressed from studying to hanging out afterwards, going to find something to eat, and then coming back and just chilling outside the dorm rooms, because, you know,
Yeah.
they wouldn't allow
Right.
the opposite gender to go into the rooms for blatantly obvious reasons.
Right.
And here we are, over 6 years later,
Nice.
married now for 7 months, and just we got a house together, and my back hurts.
Everybody's back hurts. It's just part of getting older. So you said you were down there like for 3 years, and so like what made you want to move or like transfer up to like where you are now?
For the most part, it was genuinely just wanting to spend my life with my fiance, because I moved up here May 16th of 2021, and just I popped the question to her at December of 2020, because I mean, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
And so I just finally made the decision that I would move up here, because there's more opportunities for both of us to advance financially, to just, the biggest thing is just that I wanted to spend my life with her, and it worked out financially and statistically better for me to move up here, because of the pay grade and just everything altogether. Just
Okay.
I am very happy that I made that decision.
Yeah.
Because I've made awesome friends. I have experienced what different parts of Georgia are, and that's quite a culture shock at first.
Yeah.
But
Very diverse.
very diverse. Gosh,
Yeah.
the freaking difference is just night and day. But I wanted to move up here. I started applying for a bunch of different jobs. I got one, and couldn't be more happy that I got it.
Nice.
Moved up here, finally got through all of the necessary stuff, all the moving, and then here we are, married
Finally-
with a house.
Yep. Settling in.
Settling in.
Yep.
Slowly, very slowly.
It takes time.
Always an adjustment, even 2 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about a couple of things like back down in what you're in Thomasville and everything, and some of the bad calls that like you had been on. You wanna talk about that a little bit more?
So a lot of them were more gruesome in nature. Not so much until the latter part of my time at Thomasville, where they more emotional, more so gruesome at first. Like, first one I ever ran, there was I was working overtime, so I was late getting to my primary station. And the engine caught a call, and so I had to hop on the truck for a little while. I think it was like all of 15 minutes that the engine had been gone before we got that call, and it was a possible signal 43, which is a possible dead person. I've been on a lot of them. Usually it's just I've been there for a year before that came out. So up until that year point, hadn't really run anything of note.
You okay over there?
That energy drink's whooping me. Lots of back pressure. It was 2 weeks before Christmas. So actually just shy of a year. And it the neighbor called it in, so all of the cops were running to her house, and the lady was standing out in the front yard, and she's like, "It's over here." So, us in the medic unit, the Thomas County EMS, walked over there, and he hung himself in the backyard. His wife was like curled up in the fetal position at his feet. Just couldn't even make a sound. No telling how long she had been there, because that was a very, very cold winter for South Georgia. She like started getting almost not frostbite, but almost there on her toes and her fingers. He had turned like different shades, like purple, blue, blood pooling, whatnot.
Yeah, lividity.
The usual rigor mortis, lividity.
Yep.
And there's nothing that we're able to do, but we have to sit there and wait on homicide and crime scene investigators to come in and work it. And so we're sitting there having to wait on this, and the guy's son shows up.
Ugh.
And he is not having it. Like, he shoves the medical director for Thomas County like to the ground, shoves him to the side to the ground. Takes like I think it was like 3 SO deputies and 2 PD officers to like actually restrain him, put him on the ground, and like, look, dude, calm down. So went through all of that. Nobody ever came up to me and asked me if I was good. So that was the start of the deal with it myself process.
Right.
That most people
do.
Especially
like in our career field.
Huge advocate for getting to the mental side of the job, because
it takes a toll.
It takes a huge toll. Like, I didn't even realize it had pretty much changed my entire personality because of the way that I dealt with it. And it wasn't alcohol, it wasn't drugs. It was pure and simple, lock it away. Suck it up, stow it away. You got a job to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I tell anybody that's just starting out, like, if you run a bad call, freaking talk to somebody. It doesn't matter. I wish I'd have done it. Don't wait for somebody to approach you. Come up and talk to somebody, because that will take a toll. That will take a huge, massive toll. A massive, massive toll. Because, and I literally say this in the most literal sense humanly possible, that my wife, girlfriend at the time, of course, is the reason that I am still alive. Because I had tried to take my life twice before.
Damn, dude.
And that's why I am a huge advocate for it. Like the EAP program, oh, come on, Marine. I hate to call it this, but the meet and greet after a serious call.
Oh, the after action review.
The after action review.
Yeah.
I had never once done an after action review until recently.
I've only ever done one.
I've done 2. And it's not fixing the problem, but damn if it doesn't freaking help.
Yeah,
a lot.
Absolutely. Hubbard and I ran a call, I think it was last year, or it was when I was in medic school, and it was for like, I can't remember what it went out as, but it may have been like an explosion or a person on fire.
The dude in the electrical box?
Yeah. And like when we pulled up, like the person himself like had a header. Like he was visibly on fire. And like, what an image to get like seared into your brain. And of course, like everyone's like, don't touch him. Like you're going to, for obvious safety reasons. But then like the first responder in you is like, I gotta fucking do something. Like, I'm not just gonna watch this man like fucking die.
That's why we're all doing this.
Yeah, exactly. So eventually, like, we get him out of the box, and Canton police officer actually like pulls him out, and we do our thing, and we get him to the hospital. And I mean, he's got burns all over, and we get back. And like I'm obviously like just glossing over a lot of like the gruesome details, but we get back to the station and there's like so many people there, and like Lieutenant Croft's like, hey man, like if you want to go home, like by all means, like go home and everything. And I like brushed it off. I was all like, man, I'm ready to go. Like let's run the next call. I was just like, I'm like, fuck it, like let's go. it wasn't until later that night where I'm like laying in bed and like I'm by myself and there's like nothing going on that it's like all that stuff starts to like come in and like you're like, oh damn.
You finally
Yeah, your
calm
brain
down.
finally like processes it and
You,
it's like you're in that like that fight or flight response of like, hey, I got a job to do, like let's do it. And I've always been of like that mentality of where like I'm at work, it's like I just kind of push aside like whatever is like personal as much as I can and do the job and then like I could deal with it afterwards. Um and I remember like when I was doing those clinicals, I'd always go back to Station 3 and like I'd spend the night just so that way I didn't have to drive back up to Blue Ridge and then I could just wake up in the morning and be at my station. And like Brooke had run the other person who was on fire and like they wanted to talk about it and I didn't really want to talk about it. Um, and then like the next morning, like C shift, or sorry, the following morning after that, like after our shift was over, they were asking questions about it and like you could tell like I was starting to get on edge and I was like I don't want to talk about it. And I believe it was like Lieutenant Smith was like, dude, you need to like talk this out because I remember like I was on edge, but like I couldn't like do anything about it at the time, and it wasn't until like a week or two later where I actually started like really talking about the call that like I started going back to normal. And I remember like that night, the very first thing that like really freaked me out was um I was staying in my lieutenant's room and he has like this little portable fan and it has like this little light on the backside, a little backlight. But the backlight was underneath the fan body. So in the middle of the night, like I wake up, just night terror or whatever, and I see the shadow from the fan being illuminated by the backlight, and it looked like some kind of like ghostly figure thing, and it freaked the fuck out of me. Like I was like genuinely scared, and I was like, "Good God, not good." So yeah, like I get it. It's like you
it's
gotta talk about this stuff.
you really do. Like especially because I'm seeing a. I know I'm only 26 years old, but it affects everybody eventually at some time. I
Yeah.
have been unfortunate enough to experience quite a bit of bad shit. Um, from everything from the decaying bodies to the dead peds, um,
Pediatrics.
the
Yeah.
pediatrics, mutilated corpses. Like 3 months before I moved up here, we had, I think it was 2:30 in the morning. I was on the truck that day. I was driving the truck, um, and we got a call for was it a vehicle rolled over with a um with a full ejection and a possible partial ejection. Yeah, it's 2:30 in the morning. Like, okay, somebody's bullshitting us. Um, it's a freaking 3 mile by 3 mile wide city. Who who could possibly be going that freaking fast through there that they flip their car and throw themselves out of it? Man, as we're getting closer, they kept updating us. Caller on scene states young female, uh, barely breathing. Get a little bit closer. Uh, Male possibly under the car. So I'm already going through my head because the truck is the extrication unit. I'm like, okay, so I need to get a line on the ground, yada yada, blah blah blah. Um, we get there. I throw my scene lights on the side, and EMS is already there. Like they were. I have never seen not dogging on them at all because I think I'd be pretty burned out too if there were only excuse me if there were only 5 ambulances for an entire county, and only 3 of them at the time, pretty much only 3 of them were actually fully in service. But they were there like lickety split, no problem. She was guppy breathing, about 30, 40 feet away from the car, lying on her back. She was, we all know, guppy breathing, that she's
Agonal breathing.
agonal. Yeah, she's probably, what was it? I think they came back and told us that she had snapped everything from her C2 down to her C6.
Jeez.
So we don't even know how she was still breathing at that point. And we go over to investigate the car because they're getting her loaded up. And I asked them, I'm like, do y'all need any help? And he's like, dude, I got 2 people already, and we're pretty much just taking her to the hospital so they can pronounce her. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go over there and look at the car. His head went through the sunroof, and the car rolled over on his head. So he's dead.
Right.
Well, for any vehicle accident with a fatality, GSP has to be on scene. So now we're standing around in the 3 o'clock in the morning in South Georgia, humidity, and even at night, the heat.
Right.
For 45 minutes to an hour waiting for a GSP trooper to get there. So we're smelling gas and oil and shit and piss and brain matter and blood and all that stuff. GSP finally gets there, starts taking pictures. We get the car cribbed and strutted, and we start working the door out. And before that, I'm jumping around a little bit, I know, but Captain Marshall Green, he is the first person to ever pull me to the side because he went up and looked at the body, and he's like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because that's pretty gnarly." I'm like, "It's my job. I'm gonna see it eventually." It wasn't even that whole like young and hungry thing of I need to get in there and help. It's like this is our job.
Right. Yeah.
It's gonna happen. So
We have those expectations of like seeing that kind of stuff, and
yeah,
you just do it and put your emotions aside for the time being and process later.
Yep. And that's always the hard part, is that
The process later.
Absolutely. It always hits. But we get the door open, we get the B post cut, put 2 more Kodiak struts up on the side of the car to start lifting the lid off. And we pull the body out, and I don't know what it was about it. I mean, other than this guy's head is flatter than a pancake, teeth everywhere, completely disfigured, brain matter, and his spine was sticking up through his nose. Like, I mean, absolutely just annihilated his head.
Right.
We got him out of the car and onto a body bag, and I'm like, okay, let's zip it up. No, coroner's got to take pictures of him. GSP has to take pictures of him. So we got the area coroned off so that nobody can see, and there are officers holding up sheets, and all of us, the firefighters, are just looking at him like, you can't even identify this poor guy. Like, I mean, he was fucked up. And I look up, and out of the 5 officers holding sheets up, 4 of them were just like face away, looking away, like couldn't even bear to look. And I'm just sitting there staring at him like, this guy's dead.
Yeah.
Like, at least as gruesome as it is, it's almost like show him respect. That he was a person. He still is a person. Maybe disfigured, but give him that respect. They finally get the body hauled away, and now we gotta wait for the wrecker to come and get the car. And I remember going back to the station, started cleaning the truck off, and for the first time in the entirety of the time that I had been at Thomasville, I was crouched down, cleaning the rim of the truck, and I just don't know what it was. I just started freaking bawling, crying. Like, I guess it just registered. I wasn't even trying to actually process it, and it just hit. I go inside, and that is another shout out to Marshall Green. I came inside, and I guess he saw my freaking eyes red or something. He's like, "Go ahead and close the door." I close the door. He's like, that was a rough one. I'm like, "Yeah, man." He's like, in all the time that I've been doing this, he's like, that is the roughest call I have ever been on. He's like, "Are you okay?" 3.5 years, just shy of 3.5 years. And that was the first time I had ever been asked after a rough call if I was okay.
It's one thing I feel that like we're really lacking on in like the fire service is like taking care of each other, or even just like the service on its own, like being able to like after these really bad calls, it's having those discussions and like, hey, like setting guys aside, like put them out of service for a minute and hey, process.
I mean, it's even like one that me and Sergeant Dobson ran.
Mm-hmm.
It was a P down.
Yeah.
Ross was there too. I don't know if he's been on here yet.
Ross? Who?
Rosswick.
Oh, Rosway. Yeah, yeah. No, he hasn't yet.
Ran a P down. Go hauling ass over there. Ross comes out with the kid in his arms. I'm like, okay, like we're going. And Dobson has me stay in the back with him. Other than crew integrity, I guess he like really actually was confident in me, which I'm always good with. But they said that he had aspirated, so I started suctioning him. Yeah, I got him suctioned, and then I tried to go find a eye gel that would fit him, and I got a pretty sure I grabbed a 1 or a 1.5. And in the process of trying to get the tube down his throat, and this is all gonna come around full circle. I accidentally like opened his eyelid, and he just had the most beautiful baby blue eyes I've ever seen. And so we start going. I start bagging him. We get to about like 2-3 minutes from the hospital, and Dobson's like, "Y'all go ahead and swap out." Me and lieutenant that was working OT was doing compressions, so he and I swapped out. And up until that point, that is the one thing that I had not done, was actually physically work a ped.
How old?
6 months.
So not necessarily even a ped, like a baby.
Like pretty much neo still. And that was undoubtedly the one thing that I did not want to do, because I had been through enough stuff that I know exactly what it was going to do. And it's that, yes, sir, suck it up. You got a life to try and save.
Right, yeah.
So, do compressions on him. Get him to the hospital. Get him wheeled in there. Turns out that mom and dad weren't even there. It was a in-house daycare. So mom and dad show up, and dad passes out, cold stone on the floor. He wakes up, and he opens his eyes, baby blue eyes. And I'm like, oh, shit, man, fuck. They work him probably another 20 minutes even after we got him there. Um, Doc calls it. Mom hasn't made a single sound this entire time. All of a sudden, me and Dobson are taking care of Dad because we want them to have all hands on deck for the kid. Doc calls it. All of the nurses leave out of the room except for like one or two of them. I'm like, Dad over here is, just passed out and liable to pass out again. Because Mom asked if they could hold him. So me and Dobson had to stay in there to make sure that he actually made it over with his wife. And she just lets out the most blood-curdling scream I have ever heard in my life. That one full send afterwards was hands down the worst one. And so we do an after action on it, and it was really, really freaking awesome to be able to get everybody's input in there. There was a girl, a lady, if you will, I don't know her age, from, I think she was just doing like hospital rotations for her EMT school. She wasn't even with any actual entity, and we let her come to our after action report. Like, that's just phenomenal that we were able to look at somebody and say, do you want to come to this after action report? Like, that's amazing. But me and Dobson were both asked, we're like, hey man, you need to go. And me and Dobson are like, fuck that. We're fucking saving somebody's damn life today. And we ran like 2 more calls, the usual BS. Oh, my leg hurts. And we took one to the hospital, and it's the same hospital, and everybody's standing around, and a couple of guys, me and Dobson, in our own headspace, trying to not think about it, trying to not look at that room. Everybody's just coming up to us like, hey man, you heard that somebody ran a PED earlier, like PED coded and everything. And me and Dobson was just keeping to himself. He had his head in that tablet, trying to not think about it, because he's got 2 daughters. I don't blame him.
He's very stoic.
Yeah,
in that sense.
He's very Marine.
Yeah, just
super focused.
Yeah,
super focused. And I would look up at him and I would say, yeah, I know. That was us. The one time I said it, I looked up and everybody in that hospital, everybody that brought patients in, all of the ER staff, all of them just stopped and just looked at us. And nobody really spoke very loudly anymore after that. But
there's a difference between like a kid, a baby, and like a 80-plus-year-old person who's lived like a full life, and you're like, sucks. And that versus the baby that you're like, it just hits harder. It's like they never got a chance.
Never had a chance.
Yeah.
Never got to experience anything.
Exactly.
And that's part of what I feel like drives me personally is I'm like, okay, I'm going to live my life the way that I want to live it because these people never got a chance to. I'm going to do the things that genuinely make me happy, not think about it, process it, but not think about it in a negative manner, so that I can live my life because they never got a chance to.
Right.
And
I mean, it's the same thing like with Justin is just try and live your life as best as you can, knowing like he doesn't get to anymore. So
Just try and make
Live
it,
your best life in honor of him and do what you can and
try and help
try and be a
Jacob
happy.
out
Yeah.
as much as possible, because that's something that nobody should ever have to go through.
Yeah.
Like, my wife lost her mom at 25 years old to uh, stage 4 breast cancer that had metastasized to her liver.
Ooh.
And so I definitely understand
Death is
that.
rough.
Not firsthand. Well, firsthand in that I was there through all of that. But especially because of the things that I saw on the job, plus her losing her mom. Both of us are very mental health oriented. Like the whole like EAP program stuff.
So what made you actually like seek help? Like,
Um,
was there like a tipping point for you where like somebody addressed it to you, or you were like, dude, something's got to change. I need to do something.
it got addressed. Me and my wife were doing premarital counseling. Highly suggest new couples to do it. We weren't having problems at all.
No, but it addresses like certain things that you may not have. Like Des and I, we did it too, and it just talks about those certain things. Like, hey, like if you have kids, like how are you gonna raise them? And it's like, oh wow, we never thought about that topic before. So, kind of addresses like big issues before they become a problem. Yeah, exactly.
Because with her losing her mom, she had her personality set, her responses from that she had her way of thinking. And me coming from a completely different part of the United States, pretty much, relatively speaking. Man, that Red Bull's really kicking my ass. Red Bull is not sponsored. And me coming from a different part of Georgia, plus my experiences in the fire department, I had notably been able to tell after that my personality had completely changed. I had gone from somebody who genuinely had empathy and sympathy for people to somebody who very brazenly, blatantly, bluntly put things. Like, I was not very tender-hearted anymore. I said it like it was. Went ham boohoo, you get butt hurt too bad, like freaking grow some thick skin, all that good crap. And we went and did premarital counseling, and it really opened our eyes to communicating with each other and about mental health in general, because I think we were like 4 months in, and she started asking me about why I act the way I do when it comes to certain things. And she's like, I think you might need to see like a PTSD therapist. And I'm like, I don't fucking have PTSD. What are you, nuts? Yeah. Went and saw a PTSD therapist, and she's like, oh, okay, we have a lot of work to do. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm freaking 26, and I'm seeing a therapist. Like, that even puts it into retrospect for guys that are retired, or guys that are doing this for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. 30 years. Like,
yeah.
Like, what have you been through?
And it compounds.
And just shoved it down so deep that you don't even show it anymore. Like, I would say it's very strong and very brave to admit that you have PTSD, but on a whole nother level, these guys are on that have been doing this for that long, and they just fucking keep going. They just keep doing it no matter what. Like, that's strength that I've never seen or heard of until I started looking into the mental health aspect of it. And that's just insane how these guys are. Like,
I think a good crew, and then like support structure outside of the fire service as well, like family or friends. But like being able to like really talk about those bad calls like with your crew and like having like that crew integrity and like you guys are or cohesiveness. Um, I think that really does play like a strong factor in like being able to deal with all this stuff. And that is kind of like one of the things that does suck about like moves all the time. It's like you get into a groove of things and like you know how like you're at a 3-man station, so it's like you know how like those other guys work, and then you get moved into a whole nother system, and it's like okay, now I got to learn a whole new group of people, and like how do I fit in? And then you catch that bad call, and you're like, man, I don't even like these guys yet, and now I got to deal with this.
that's something that I've never agreed with. I think it's absolutely.
I mean, I understand it. It's like as a business and like or as an organization, it's like it's necessary, especially like at our level. But it does suck regardless. Um, it would be cool like if you do 20 years with like the same group of guys. That would be awesome.
Like, that's.
But it's not possible for us.
I mean, it kind of really should be with the amount of people that we have to be able to leave people where they're at unless it is absolutely necessary to move them because you eat together, you work together, you know each other's strengths and weaknesses. Like when we were working together,
Yeah, every third day you're with that person.
Like you knew that I could lift heavy crap.
Yep.
To a certain extent, of course. And I knew that your cardio was like unmatched. So we knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. So when we would ride on the ambulance together, we already knew what each other was going for, what our plan was. And then I get moved. I have to learn a whole new crew.
Yep.
I have to learn a whole new area. I have to learn a whole new truck for that matter too, because not all of them are universally the same across all aspects. And I think it would be super beneficial if left there.
Red Bull's really hurting you.
Dude, for real. I don't know what's going on with that. It's not letting me have any fun. We just got to figure out a better way to help everybody because everybody's different. Everybody's got their own way of dealing with it. Just like you said, you didn't want to talk about it. You're a bad call for a week. That's your personal response to something traumatic.
Yeah, everybody's different. Individual responses for sure.
And it only really sets in after you've calmed down, come out of fight or flight, and you start thinking and processing it. And depending on your experience and what you know about yourself and about dealing with some sort of trauma, you really have to be careful with what you go with because some things can make it worse. Some things don't help at all.
Positive outlets versus negative, yeah. Alcohol, drugs, or just bad behaviors.
Getting a negative disposition towards everything in life.
Dude, I used to, like, even kind of before the fire service, like, if something kind of bad happened to me, I would just go on a run. And, like, sometimes, like, it would be, like, a 2-3 mile run, and I'm like, okay, I feel better. And then sometimes it's like, holy crap, I just ran 12 miles. And it was just, that was my time to, like, deal with it. And just, sometimes I run with music, sometimes I don't. Depending on the situation. But yeah, it's like if you have that positive outlet to like get that like the endorphin high from working out, but just doing something physical, it's like you genuinely feel better afterwards. But for me, it was like that run of 1, I'm alone, 2, it's like a long stretch to like to be with your thoughts, even if you got music going, like you're still with your thoughts. But that was always my thing. Is just like I didn't train for 12 miles, but I just ran it one day. It was just like I ran 6 miles out and was like, all right, well, I should probably turn around at this point. ran another 6 back.
And just like that, it's finding what
Finding what works for you.
works for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I went into the gym, threw around a couple weights, didn't really help. Like, it helped for the 30 minutes that I was in there doing a leg day. And I came back out from the gym, and I'm like, yeah, that didn't do shit.
Well, that didn't last long.
That didn't last long. So then I just started doing stuff. I went and took my kayak down there and started doing that. Just for me personally, just being out in the sun like a freaking plant, just soaking it up, it helps. Helps
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot for me personally.
Yeah, just being outside with vitamin D, getting that sun, and you just genuinely feel better.
And then just socializing with people, because
Yeah.
95% of the bad traumatic calls that you run have to do with death.
Yeah.
So what's going to help you alleviate, get around, or bypass that trauma response of fuck everybody, fuck everything, I just don't want to deal with anything, I don't want to deal with anybody, is being around people, for me personally, again.
Right.
Because being social with people is like, oh, there's still life. I'm still alive.
It's like you don't want it, but you know you need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like I didn't want to talk to people, but talking was the thing that finally like allowed me to like process everything and start to like get back to being normal.
If you ever just suck it up and do something, that's usually the thing that helps most people. And that comes right back around to PTSD therapists and talking with your crew or after action reports, like just talking to somebody, getting it out, not having to shove it down,
Yeah.
is what will help tremendously and start progressing.
So do you ever talk to like Sarah after calls or after shift? Or do you guys try and like avoid that work talk since you're both first responders?
For the most part, we would try to avoid it, but
Like, hey, I need to talk about this one call.
yeah, like when Justin and Amber died, I came home the day after on shift because they were like, "Hey, man, you need to go home," and I'm like, at the time, I had been doing this for like 5 years, and I'm like, yeah, or at least 4.5. I was like, I need to go home because I have not processed this. Like, I never honestly thought I'd lose a crew member
Like that.
like that,
It's
especially.
like we all expect like the line of duty death. It's like it's part of the job. It's you have that thought in the back of your head. Hey, this might. Oh, I wake up every morning, kiss Des on the cheek, and I'm like, love you. And she's still sleeping, but it's like do it every time because like you never know. Like you don't know if you're coming back.
Like Sarah this morning, she left for work and she woke me up and she's like, "Hey, love you too, baby." Like, gave her a kiss and off she went.
But we have that expectation as like first responders. It's like that's part of the job. It's something that's in the back of your head. Like it could happen. That just like left field, just out of nowhere.
I wasn't expecting to be at the training center fixing to do a gear workout and Laughlin getting an email and saying, "Oh shit, man, Justin Hicks just died. Like he's dead." And I started hysterically laughing, like just laughing, and he was not laughing at all. He was stone faced. And Jessica Hill was the one that I was gonna do the gear workout with, and she's just like looking at me with a very concerned face. And I look back at Laughlin, I'm like, okay, it's not funny anymore, man. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, I just got an email. He's dead.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no fucking way. I go outside and I call Miller. I call Lieutenant Miller.
Yeah.
He didn't answer
Yeah, he
because
was making phone calls.
he was all over the place. I called Ganka. Ganka's like, I'm not sure. Ganka's like, I'm not sure. I think I called Doug. I called Doug Whitten, and he's like, I don't know. And then I called Brower, and Brower was like, it's true. And I was like, it just sank in real hard right then. And then Miller finally called me back, like probably about 20, 30 seconds after I got off the phone with Brower. And he like just double confirmed it. Don't even remember what I was feeling at that time. Just pure blackness, just emptiness. And I just crouched down beside a pole and started bawling my freaking eyes out. And I got out of recruit school before everybody else. So all of them in their recruit uniforms were like walking by, just saw me just bawling my freaking eyes out. And one guy, Devin Cleveland, came over and he's like, you knew him? Like, even they knew already. He's like, you knew him, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, I worked with him for a month before that happened. And that was a huge kick in the gut of, I never thought that would happen, especially like we just said, like that. So when I went home, Sarah was like, do you want to talk about it? And I'm like, I'm not even sure I've processed it yet. And so,
Were you there at Reformation with us?
Mhm.
Okay, I can't remember. It was just like a blur.
yeah, I went to Reformation afterwards, and I didn't feel like I should be there.
Are you talking about like the day of?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can't remember because I went twice. One was with all of y'all
After the funeral.
after the funeral,
Yeah.
and then I also went there the night of with Miller, Ganka, Brower, and Doug.
Okay. I had left at that point.
Oh yeah, because
Blue Ridge. Yeah. Had to get back.
I got there and they're like, "Hey man, Wilson just left." I'm like, "Shit," but I just didn't feel like I had the right to be there because I only knew him for a month.
Yeah, but Justin was one of those guys like, dude, you met him once and like you guys were friends. Like he was just like a lovable dude.
Let alone a freaking month. Like, he was the one that like really showed me all the ropes when I first got to the station. Um, always smiling,
Just
always
a big old goober.
just a freaking goober, just a goofball.
Yeah.
And that's the other part that hit quite a bit different, is that I know a lot of people that it was like, if they died, it would obviously suck, not to sound like a dick, but it's like, that's just different because he was a good person, a good guy,
Yeah.
just got through medic school, got a son, Amber. I'd only even met Amber once, and she brought Jacob by to see Justin
Yeah.
because, medic school, hadn't seen him in a couple of days, checking to see if he's freaking still sane.
Yeah.
And just had to take time for me to process it. Like, I talked to Sarah a little bit, but at that same time, I don't know any other couples that are both first responders. Like, literally none at all. So I don't know how to go about talking about some stuff like that. Mostly I did just to,
I mean, you just do what works for you too.
yeah. I mean, mostly I never opened up to her about it until recently because I just, that whole don't want them to experience what you've experienced kind of thing. Like, I hope she never, ever has to deal with anything that I've dealt with for her sake.
Yeah.
So I tried.
I mean, it's the same thing with Des. It's like, even if like I do have a bad call, I still gloss over some details because it's like she doesn't need to know the nitty gritty, and she'll obviously listen to this later and be like, "What aren't you telling me?" No, but I mean, she's like really supportive, and she's like, if I need to talk, she'll let me talk. But I still have that thought in the back of my head of like, okay, I don't really need to tell all the bad stuff because I don't need to burden her with that.
Yeah.
But to an extent too, it's she'll never understand what we go through. Like I could have a conversation easier with you and like any other firefighter / EMS law enforcement because it's like we have those shared experiences. Like it's like you truly do know versus like trying to explain something like, okay, we were having to do this and then that and this wasn't working or whatever. Versus like you and I, it's like we can tell simple details and it's like, okay, you automatically know like, okay, wow, this is going down a bad road or whatever. And
you can generalize it
yeah,
through prior experiences.
yeah. And you have that shared like empathy of like, oh damn, like, yeah, I know what's going down.
Like even me, like I'm so much better than what I used to be in terms of mentally thinking about all of that stuff. Because sometimes you just go down a rabbit hole,
Right.
not even intending to, but sometimes you just freaking yeet yourself down that rabbit hole, for lack of better description, and you sink into it and you just go deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's when it gets worse and worse and worse until you find that positive outlet, whether it be therapy or doing your own thing. Like, that's why I want to explore that more, because for some people, you can talk to your spouse and it makes it a little bit better. Again, just like you do, probably better gloss over some details. Sorry, Des. But, just finding that positive reinforcement for the mental health of everybody here, because we all run that rough crap. Like, it happens every day at some department, and
It's like we complain about the BLS stuff, but the BLS stuff is, in reality, it's really easy. It's just, sometimes it's a pain in the ass in the moment of just like, this isn't 911, but honestly, it's like, they're so much easier. Like the report's easier. You don't have to think about it. Like 10 minutes after the call, it's like you already mind dumped most of it, and you're like, who cares? Like, whatever, move on. And I don't have to remember anything about that. And it's the ALS ones that truly like stick with you. And like, yeah, it's like, it's more of like the interesting stuff of part about our job, but it's like, God, like if I never really run another bad call in my life, like I'm not going to cry about it.
and
Like,
it's
but I know they're coming, but it's
the inevitability,
yeah,
but still not wanting it,
yeah.
because
They're more interesting, yet they take a toll on you.
and I mean, it's even the like bad ALS calls, like all the STEMIs and the strokes, everything like that, where get them to the hospital and it's like, shit, that was a close one, man, but they're still alive.
Yeah.
Even those, like, they can bother you. They don't really necessarily stick out to me because obviously we always fixate on the worst thing.
Yeah.
Do 2,000 good things in there. Everybody's going
It's the
to
one bad thing.
fixate on that one bad thing.
Yeah.
It's the same concept in your mind. Like, no matter how many stemmies we save, no matter how many strokes we save, if we get somebody back from a code, gonna pat yourself on the back for probably a couple days, and then you're gonna go right back to that one damn peed we couldn't save,
Or the hanging,
or the hanging, or the freaking decomposing corpses, or
Yep.
the people that shoot themselves. Just you fixate on them. So
Just those images like stay in your head.
and that was something that I thought of earlier too. Whenever you said about seeing a ghost, it made me think of like PTSD recall,
Yeah.
which is like we went on a wreck, and I think it was like that 4-car pileup or something.
You always remember more details than I do.
I don't know why I can do that.
It's like after 30 seconds of explaining, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, now I remember. It's like I genuinely, it's like we developed this. I think it's like most of us, like in first responders type jobs, it's like, or at least I do, is you just develop a short term memory for like your own safety. Like you just forget it. Like you can't just keep processing all that stuff over and over again. It's like you just genuinely put it away, forget, and it's not until somebody's like gives you multiple details that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, now I remember.
And the majority of it is that I remember actually like relevant to something. It's not just like random bullcrap of, oh yeah, this one time is completely not involved with the subject matter at all. Like for some reason I can recall certain things that have to do with that. I don't know, my brain's weird. But like we were walking up to that wreck, and it was just a perfect mixture of gasoline and
You say we, is that you and me?
yeah.
Oh, see,
Yeah,
I don't remember it.
we were at that wreck, and we were walking up to it, and I could just smell it. It was like this perfect mixture of gas and oil, or gas and coolant, or something.
Where was this?
I think it was somewhere around Reinhardt College.
You and I ran that?
Remember the like 3 closest squads were out on calls, and we passed.
Were we on Squad 16 that day? Or was that Squad 23?
We were 23. We passed 3 going to it, and they were in the station, and we were like, what the fuck, guys?
I don't remember.
But it was just that perfect mixture that shot me back to that wreck I was previously talking about with the dead girl and the obviously dead guy.
Right.
Like it was just a split second of like an out of body experience almost, that I was just back there. That call was in broad daylight, and whenever that smell hit my nose, it was like pitch black outside. Like I was standing looking at the car.
Yeah.
And
it's like
then
that sense of smell, like I think they said like that has like the strongest like memory recall of like all the senses. It's like,
and it does.
ooh, just instantly remember stuff.
That one for sure does, which is why most people that run like super disfigured stuff, gory, that's why they don't really process or register it if they don't think about it until they smell something that reminds them of it. And then that is the most powerful recall that is out there from what I've seen. So certain stuff like that, and even like trigger words, like that peed that we ran. everybody was saying like that was their only son, and the father had went and got a circumcision that morning, and it's like, just damn, that's just sucks. Until later, I think it was like 4 or 5 nights later, um, we went over to our friend's house, which that also was a hard hitter because that call happened a week before the wedding. Um, we were over at their house just chilling out, just trying to get ready to have one of the biggest, happiest moments of our lives. And uh, somebody said something else, and then one of them was like, "Yeah, you can just like circumcisions are so easy these days." I don't know, just weird conversations. But as soon as she said circumcision, it just
That thought went right back. Yeah.
shot right back to it. Like I could hear mom screaming for 8, 15. I don't even know how it felt like forever. But like I didn't even realize I was doing it. But apparently I got up from my chair and like held my hands over my ears, trying to like block out the sound. And that's probably when Sarah, like, on our way home, she's like, "Okay, you need to freaking see somebody when we get back."
Yeah.
Which is another interesting point, that we went on our honeymoon to Greece for 2 weeks. Not a problem, not a thought, nothing. Just almost like a hard reset for the brain.
That's good. That's good for you, though.
Absolutely nothing.
That's great.
Which was insanely awesome until we got back. And you just
Pow, right in the kisser.
pow right in the kisser. You step back on that
Yeah.
ambulance in that exact same spot. Or you make coffee in your house in the exact same place that you were standing whenever you took in that deep breath and said, "Fuck, that sucked yesterday." It's some heavy shit that we just bypass all the time.
So how long have you been like professionally seeking help now?
3 or 4 months.
Okay.
And it helps out
Good.
tremendously. Quite a lot. It's most of the PTSD specialists, they specialize in PTSD, but it's not only PTSD. So they're also getting you to register past trauma that led you up to that point. Like, she's like, why did you become a firefighter? And I'm like, because I wanted to help people. She's like, why do you want to help people? Because I just want to help people. So she's like, well, how about your past? And I'm like, well, my mom's best friend had paranoid schizophrenia, ran out of her meds, ended up shooting her daughter and then herself, who was my friend. 5 years old, you can't register that
Right.
until you get older, and you start thinking and processing and learning, and then starts there. And then when I was 13, I had a friend. Her name was Lakin. She was apparently going through it pretty rough. And my phone had died. Not even thinking about it, just phone died. I wake up the next morning and see a Snapchat, chap snap, from her saying like, "Hey, it's been fun. Goodbye." Like, look at my phone. She had shot herself like around the time that she sent that, like right after. So it's kind of basing it off of, you couldn't help people in the past, so now I'm trying to help people now.
Yeah.
goes into that, and I was like, I didn't even register that could be a possibility for it. So I think we overlook mental health too much, and a therapist is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. It's always at least good to try it and see anyway, because having a third party opinion, especially from somebody who is experienced in that field, it's just can change your entire process of thinking about how you deal with things, why you do the things you do, what led you to do those things. It's some good stuff. Stuff that I never realized, stuff that's registered. It's like, son of a bitch, that's why? Like, God bless. And then all of a sudden, everything just starts clicking. Everything starts making sense all of a sudden. Oh, that's why I do that. Well, let's fix that. Like, oh, that's why I do that. How do we fix it?
Right.
Like, before I met Sarah, I just did what I did. I just did my thing. I had been diagnosed with depression at 12 years old, taking meds, the whole nine. Sarah got diagnosed with ADHD because she started noticing finally that she couldn't focus, just couldn't stay on task, couldn't think straight. And she's like, I see a lot of that in you. And I'm like, okay. So I went and took the test, and she's like, oh, yeah, you got ADHD and some pretty bad anxiety. I'm like, define pretty bad anxiety. She's like, borderline crippling. And I'm like, what? You're so full of shit. And she's like, you ever take a test or do something and you know that you're going to do good on it, but you still get like super nervous, super jittery, just second guessing yourself all the time? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you just dealt with it for 25 years and learned how to cope with it. I'm like, oh shit. Started trying a bunch of different stuff, and Adderall is what worked for me.
Good.
Like, super focused. All of my anxiety goes away. Starting to work on that part of it as well, of mental health, is factoring in what you already have. Like, people having ADHD is becoming more of a common thing because, back in the past, it was seen as not good, a hindrance, a detriment, taking a giant step back. Now it's becoming more of an okay/common thing, but that also has to be factored into how you deal with PTSD, because I noticed that whenever I started getting into conversations about stuff that was rough, talking about like the peds and the dead bodies, I would start like just like slowly like moving my hand across my leg or like tapping something.
Fidgeting.
Yeah. Well, that's anxiety kicking up, and that's how you know, because your brain says, I don't want to talk about this, even though you really should. And that's really been not a struggle, but quite a pain in dealing with PTSD. I'm not saying I have full blown PTSD. I know a lot of people are trying to get away from calling it PTSD, but at the same time, I feel like we need to call it what it is, because it's not really something to joke with. It's not something to play with, because look at veterans.
Yeah.
22 a day. That's some serious stuff. And we think about our first responders. Think about how many first responders there are in comparison to military. Like that is a staggering number and a staggering percentage. Um, and it is bad. I feel like we all hyperfixate on line of duty deaths. It is bad. We do need to be more educated on that. But it's when these guys and gals get a bad call and they go home and they start processing it and they don't know what to do or they don't know how to go about it. That's whenever it starts turning into, okay, now we're getting into very dangerous territory. And most EAP programs that I've seen are absolute freaking trash. I will call it like I see it. Positive, negative, I don't care. I will call it like I see it. This, I just keep saying it, but I can't stress it enough. Something's got to change with it. Like, I know that they're working on, I think it's a peer support group of some sort, which is very, very good. But my wife is also a firefighter. She is on a peer support group, and with her experience of personal loss, losing her mom, that is a very good fit for that. So looking at the people who are on it is also just as important as having one. But most people that I've seen that are actually like open to talk about it are saying that therapy is absolutely bar none fantastic for them.
You got to deal with it however you deal with it. Like, you got to talk, do some kind of positive way of taking care of that issue, for sure. Like, talking to peer group, go on a run, go work out, go outside and meditate, what pray. But yeah, it's like you have to tackle that and address it and actually try and fix those issues. You can't just let them.
You have to take a step in the right direction first.
You can't just not address it.
Like,
or go down the bad roads of, yeah.
Like, even when I tried to take my life, the thing that stopped me was all I saw was Sarah's face. That was it. Nothing else. Couldn't hear nothing. Couldn't smell nothing. Just all I saw when I closed my eyes was her face. That was all I saw. And that's when I was 100% done with that entire thought process. That was, I'm meant to be here. I'm not going to deprive her from her boyfriend, because I was already starting to think in the non-depressive episodes, I guess we'll call it, that I would love nothing more than to marry this woman. I'm like, that's going to be kind of hard to do if you're dead, you know? So that entire thought process just stopped right then and there. Didn't try and seek any help because I didn't know. I didn't know any better. But I knew for a fact that that was the end of that. Period, end of story. And I just recently told her that she is the reason that I'm still here. And that just hit her on a whole nother level. And it was after I had started PTSD therapy that I told her that. And it comes around full circle because you realize it you tell somebody who means something very important to you that they actually helped you, and that even like brings it around even further to like entire another full circle of like there are ways around these mental roadblocks that we have. Like this isn't the old days anymore. This isn't World War II or Vietnam era. Like women are firefighters too.
Yeah.
Gas is $3.50 a gallon. There's not a silk and a rubber shortage. We've had a freaking pandemic, once in 100-year pandemic. Like, we can't just keep being a reactive service when it comes to mental health. We can be a reactive service to the cause all day long because that's where we are. But being proactive for the mental health and stability of everyone that's doing this job, especially these younger guys, definitely for the older guys, because we would love for them to stick around, but these younger generations that are coming through, like these ones that are wanting to do it for the long haul, the 30-year ones, like we need to freaking pave the way for them.
Take care of them.
We need to take care of them because one day we're going to be old. Do you want somebody who's messed up in the head, not compassionate, doesn't give a flying fart about you to come and help you? Or do you want somebody who is actively seeking help, is trying to fix the problems that have been created, and is now so focused solely on trying to take care of you and help you and make you better?
Yeah. So we're already well over an hour, but
Whoops.
That's all good. If you had any advice for somebody who was seeking mental health, seeking help in any way, like what would you say?
First and foremost, get my freaking number. I'll stick it right square in the face of this podcast. I will say it right now. 229-200-2319. South Georgia zip 229. Yeah. You can talk to me. I am always got my phone on me. I'm always happy to take a text or a call. I actually just helped one of my buddies in South Georgia. Because Sarah told his wife that I was doing PTSD therapy and it was helping so much. And she's like, my husband's kind of been thinking about it. She gave him my number and he texted me. He's like, hey, man, I've been thinking about this. I'm like, bro, do it. It helps so much. I'm like, if you need to talk about something, just hit me up. He's called me. That was probably about a month ago. He's called me like 3 times since then. 2 before he started the therapy and 1 after. And he was like, that was the best freaking decision that I've ever made. Yeah. I'm all for helping people, fire department, get through their ailments, illness, whatever. I am more so on top of helping my brothers and sisters get through their mental problems, especially if they have identified them and want to actually fix them. But even if you don't want to call me, just talk to somebody. Yeah. Talk to an older guy. Talk to Wilson. Wilson knows. Just talk to somebody. Just if you know you have a problem, like you don't have to be scared or shy about it. Like I know most people talk about it very negatively. It's a pretty freaking common thing, especially in the field that we're in.
Yeah.
So just get help any way you can. If you've tried to fix it yourself and it's not working, talk to somebody. If you haven't tried, talk to somebody. Or especially how everything is nowadays, somebody out there is going to try and help you. And I know a bunch of guys at a bunch of different departments that are more than happy to help you. Like,
Yeah.
I've got at least 3 different people's phone number that will hook you up with a therapist right here, right now.
Well, dude, thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on and telling me your stories, telling us your stories. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me up here. And sorry I was so long-winded with some stuff. But
Oh, good. That's why it's here.
If anything, I hope at least it helps somebody somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if, like, one person listens to this or watches it on YouTube, whatever, it's like, hey, if it helped, then that's great.
If it helps, it helps. And that's what I couldn't be
Yeah.
more happy about.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please follow us on your favorite podcast app, hit that bell for notifications on new episodes, and please share with a friend. Thank you for all the support so far. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.